Hi everyone, it's me, Nadia, talking about language as usual. So I wanted to share um, different methods that seem to work for people. um, I've been um, researching and um, tutoring language for many years, and it's a strange job. But um, I think that for me, like, I'd rather work from people's goals out. So the first question from people who learn language is, where is the material? And I want to say that the material is from your life. And then basically it's related to your kind of work, your kind of social life, and your goals. And then from there, we can pick the right materials that can help you along the way. So let's look at what we're going to talk about. Um, I just want to ask some reflective questions before I end this slide, just to get some thinking juices moving. Then I'm going to get into the methods. My comment is that they sound like common sense, they sound like things that we always hear that we need to do when we learn something. But in order to excel in them, we really need to put them in practice. And you are welcome to give me feedback if you have comments or have different views of these methods. Um, I'm gonna get you also trying something out. It's very simple. I'm not gonna ask you to memorize 20 new vocabulary words, but just to get an idea of where I am um, at this point of in my research and like uh, working with people when that happens. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the program and um, myself. So uh, slowly you'll get to know what kind of videos I'll be posting in the near future. So the first kind of method, or the first um, point to mention when you're learning a language, is that you can try many different programs, many different centers. You can travel, you can try to have a homestay kind of um, um, learning program. But if you don't know why you're doing it, then what happens is that because you already know a language and because you're already busy with many, many things in life, um, adding a new language is going to be a frustration, or it's going to go back it's going to go fall back in terms of like um, tasks that you have to do for the day or the month or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that if something major in your life depends on adding this language, then you're going to prioritize it and sacrifice other important things that you're doing in your life. um, a student of mine or students of mine said to me once that learning a language is a is a expensive is an expensive hobby. And I was like, oh, if that's the view, then it won't be an easy ride if somebody thinks of it that way. It doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be just a hobby. It might actually be a very important thing in your life. So your motivation is what's going to carry you through um, going through levels of the language. There's also a lot of research about motivation itself. And research kind of shows that It's either you have motivation or you have discipline. And then one of them is going to create those habits or learning habits that we need to master a language at some point. The second kind of factor when you're learning a language is how you manage your time. Again, in general, this sounds very typical, um, very typical advice, but the less you try to acquire or learn in a week or a month, and the more you repeat it, I'd say that's still a better model than trying to like memorize a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, especially when it comes to vocabulary and grammar. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, but the more you space out what you're learning, um, and the more you repeat it, um, probably the longer it will stick in your mind. Now, people's capacities are different, okay? The way you learn just depends on how you've been learning from a young age. That doesn't mean that's your capacity. You might have some hidden skills that you haven't tested before. Also, repetition can get very boring. So there is also a lot of research on different methods um, of how to repeat things that will make it more enjoyable and more natural. Like you can just fit it into your day. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But for now, let's go to point number 3. Um, your surrounding basically is where you're going to practice the language. So if you go to a class, for example, in the morning, but you come back home and everyone is not speaking your target language, again, this sounds like common sense, but this is where you can build things, and this is where you can kind of work with your current teacher or future teacher and kind of incorporate things into your environment that will just make it more natural for you to practice it. So why I'm saying this now is because if you look historically at how people learned languages, it wasn't very academic until things became very academic. People just would just hang around people who spoke their target language and they pick things up and then they go back home and they can use the language. So we're at a time where there are different methods to learn language and it's fine. But the more things you can do in your day using that language, the more practice you would have had by the end of the month. And I say month and week because these are good milestones for targets and goals. Also, things need to be kind of level and age appropriate. So you'll go to different centers and you'll find, oh, we have 4 levels, 6 levels, 9 levels. The level exactly, like the exact level doesn't matter. It's just kind of where you are um, where you are generally in like your knowledge of the language, and also having people and a program that kind of cater to your general age. So some people are like, oh, I'm just gonna go join like an elementary group, like where there are kids. That's fine if you don't get frustrated from kids. But if you go to an adult kind of learning place and they're showing you very kiddish stuff, that might get a little annoying. So we'll talk again about environment later. And then number 4, I don't know if you can see the full writing here, but I do think people should have a little bit of insight of how language is acquired in the brain and how it's acquired over time. Um, and that will kind of just help you not get frustrated when you can't recall something that you learned. You just think, oh yeah, because language works that way, not the way I want, basically. Um, our brains are kind of organized um, in certain ways. So there are lots of theories on how we learn language, but the point is that there are theories. It's not very random, and it is kind of a gradual process. Um, so when you know how the language works and can um, can see the patterns that have worked for people before, and again, you either have time for this or your trainer or teacher would be using those activities as opposed to just following a book, then you will get places as well. We will all get places because I'm trying to learn some languages and I'm getting frustrated because I put these points aside sometimes. Finally, again, you don't need to cram things. Your brain will help you notice patterns of spelling and grammar and things like that. Explicit um, learning is okay, but over time, if you just keep practicing some lessons, if you practice like speaking and writing, then your brain's gonna be like, oh, okay, I see. I see what's happening. Every time I use ing, for example, um, there's a specific word that comes before it. So if a teacher is trying to explain to you present continuous, for example, but you don't understand the teacher or the level that they are using to explain things to you is a bit higher or is not the way you learn, then that might get a little difficult. So, and you might say, oh, well, the grammar is difficult. No, I don't think it's the grammar itself. It's just that it needs to be practiced. So, these are the 5 um, topics I wanted to talk about today. And here is a very simple activity that um, you can try if you have a pen and a paper. And if not, just kind of look at the picture and reflect as I try to explain what I want you to do. So we have 4 language skills that are kind of used universally. Doesn't have to be that way, but they are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So if you are at this stand, this vegetable stand, I see some fruits, so vegetable and fruit stand. What do you think? Um, what do you think you need to listen to in order to be able to purchase some products? And then the other way around, if you were selling it, what listening skills would you need there? So these are not very difficult questions. They're just reflective questions of what a conversation might require in this situation. So what's nice is that if you do have like products or you're in trading in the trading business, the more you can speak your customer's language, the more you'd be able to communicate with them, and then hopefully you can um, increase your profit. I think you know what I'm trying to say. Um, I spoke to a Filipino um, customer service lady one time, and I remembered that I had a friend in Qatar who didn't speak Arabic, but whenever she was finished with a service, she would just say thank you in that language. And immediately, like, people would really like that and show her more customer service and, more, give her more attention and stuff. So definitely this is a big, big chance to increase your customers, if you can trade across languages and countries. Um, Also, the second skill, what kind of reading do you think would be involved in this picture from the seller's point of view and from the customer's point of view? And then, do you think there are any writing skills that you might need as a seller or a customer in this case? And finally, are there any speaking skills that are required in this situation? Specific um, speaking skills. Uh, so these are the 4 skills in general, and then we have 2 domains, which are language, which are grammar and vocabulary. So these would be instilled into the skills. What kind of vocabulary do you think is involved in this case? And what this might be a more abstract question, but what kind of grammar do you think you'd need in this situation? So how this is the, like, from where I like try to build the programs for students, kind of see what situations they're going to be in and then use those as our learning activities. 2 more points and then we'll be finished. So I've been working in language centers and working with other people when it comes to teaching language. And I've compiled what I liked from the centers and what I've kind of seen from my life, learning languages, from other people learning languages, and from research. And every center does have a nice program usually, but because it's more of like a corporate setting or a group setting, then it's not going to fulfill every single person's goals or match every single person's learning styles and lives and things like that. So if it still works for you, if you're just doing things on the side, then that's great. But if not, this program might complement um, where you're trying to go with your language. And I'm sorry I talk slow sometimes. I'm just thinking about, I'm imagining that I'm in a classroom sometimes. And I think in Arabic sometimes. And that's why I train and coach in Arabic and English for non-native speakers, mainly. And I like to work with specific purposes. Um, so if you have some kind of business or trade or social goal in mind and you would like to improve either of these languages, um, we might just connect. So I've been trying to modify this program over 15 years. I still talk to a lot of other language teachers, so I'd love it if I can collaborate, of course. Um, it's just kind of a modification after seeing different people and going to different countries and stuff, seeing what works and what doesn't work and stuff like that. Um, there's always a factor of personalities, like what kind of person I am, what kind of person you are, my background, your background. And like I said, when you're building your learning environment, remember that there are different personalities. You know, if you go to a vegetable fruit market, there's going to be different kinds of people there, and then that affects your motivation sometimes. So things are quite interrelated, but there are patterns. There are patterns that you'll notice. So keep this in mind when you pick a program, or if you decide to work with me. Then as adults, we need to know how we both kind of function, and then take it from there. I think what's also going to be different than training in a center is that I don't think I can teach that many people in 1 month. So in order for people to achieve their goals, we'll need to focus. We'll need time, and we'll need to focus on individuals' lives and activities and progress. So I'm going to put a maximum number of students per month so we can get some effective learning happening. And I'll explain the chart in just a second. But also we'll have two different kinds of programs. I think that if this is a priority for you, then we'll try to get some immersion, like gradual immersion happening. But if you're busy, then we don't want to change everything in your life, because that gets frustrating. So we'll modify based on things. Okay, this here we're talking about my time, and I like to kind of do paid things and work in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, because I like to research about language, I still have some free classes. So there should be something for everyone, hopefully. Okay, so this is a general breakdown of how I want to run this program. First, we sit together, or virtually sit together, and plan many things out. We assess where you are, where you want to be, and then I'll create some activities. And there are going to be techniques that we're going to rotate, not every month. I wrote monthly, but weekly. I think you know what I mean. So the program will be 1 month, but we'll rotate the activities 4 times. And then we're going to meet to practice these activities. So that's what's going to be a little different. I don't want to have like daily classes or, lecturing kind of things. I think this is more about practice. So I'll give you the activities, you work on them, and then we practice them together. And we'll practice through probably a lot of texting as well, texting and voice notes and things like that. So like I said, I do teach a lot of, I don't want to say teach, I practice language with a lot of people. So if you just want to practice once in a while, we can do that for free. If you just want to put a little bit of time, then make a small fee for that. And then if you are serious and you want to get things done quickly, then we can have a very concentrated program there. And I'll have an option where you can just kind of purchase material and work on things by yourself, and then I'll guide you from, you know, from far away. Let's see. Okay, so if you look at this chart here, I'd say that in general, we can say that there are 6 different levels of language. You could say there's 100 levels, but in general, you can be pretty proficient and or very able to use the language if we say that you're in a level 6 universally. Um, what I want to try to modify is to try to spend 2 months per level. And again, these are not definite um, time frames because it's language. It's not like a defined skill. Um, but to try to organize things, I'd say 2 months per level. And then within that month, we'll have some coaching sessions where we're practicing. I'm going to have very set activities that I want you to work on, ideally daily. And then even daily, I want them done at like specific times. And then we're going to be doing a lot of reflection about how things are going and how we can modify things there. So this is just in general. A lot of worksheets would be coming your way, but it's not like academic style worksheet. It's more like activity, kinetic activities, hopefully. Finally, I will try to break down the program a bit more in the next video. You can take it and do whatever you want with it. You can share it with your friends, or you can make a program for yourself, or you can share it with your teacher, or if you want, you can work with me. Okay, I'll end here. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, bye-bye.